There's something you need to hear, and it might ruin the way you see yourself. You were never hard to read, not to the people who mattered, not to the people who were paying attention. They already knew. The way your voice shifted when you lied, the way you laughed too hard when you felt invisible, the way you filled silences because being seen in stillness made you feel exposed. Someone read you once, not with words, but with attention. They saw the parts of you you have spent years trying to control, hide, or deny, and you did not even notice, because no one teaches you that being seen is not loud. It's subtle, it's slow, it's surgical. The best readers don't announce what they know. They simply never forget it. Nietzsche did not teach us how to read people to gain control. He showed us what happens when we don't, when we confuse the mask with the person, when we fall in love with someone's performance, or worse, when we believe our own. This video is not about mind tricks or body language hacks. It's about reading people at the level where truth leaks, in the pauses, the deflections, the tone beneath the tone. And by the time we are done, you won't just know how to read others. You will realize they have been reading you the entire time. This is not the beginning of clarity. It's the end of hiding. Most people think they are hard to read. They wear confidence like armor. They speak with rehearsed certainty. They present themselves as curated identities, not because they are fake, but because they are afraid to be real. But Nietzsche saw straight through that. He believed people don't speak from truth. They speak from protection. Language, he said, was not created to reveal who we are. It was built to survive, to hide, to belong. So when someone talks, you're not hearing their soul. You are hearing their mask explain why it deserves to be accepted. We trust words too much, but people leak truth in places they don't realize. In tension, in silence, in misalignment between what they say and how they say it. Nietzsche did not just study language, he studied contradiction. He believed that truth is not in what's said, it's in what's avoided. And once you start looking through that lens, the world becomes transparent. The confident man who never stops talking, he's terrified of stillness. The perfectionist woman obsessed with control, she's at war with her own inner chaos. The people who judge the loudest often hate in others what they can't face in themselves. People are not mysteries, they are patterns. Patterns shaped by pain, by childhood, by fear, repeated until they become personality. And when you start seeing people this way, you will never go back. Because what once looked like arrogance, you will see as insecurity. What once felt like rejection, you will understand as self-protection. What once hurt you, now simply makes sense. You don't need a degree in psychology to read people. You just need to stop believing what they say and start listening to what they show. Because Nietzsche was right. People are not hiding from you. They are hiding from themselves. Every profound spirit needs a mask. That's what Nietzsche said. And like most of his insights, it was not just poetic, it was dangerous. Because once you understand this, you stop believing in the surface. You stop trusting smiles. You stop mistaking kindness for purity. You stop thinking that what someone shows you is who they are. Masks are not worn because people are fake. They are worn because the truth would cost too much. From childhood, we learn this. If you cry too loud, you're too sensitive. If you question too much, you're too difficult. If you shine too bright, you're too full of yourself. So we adjust. We become palatable. We shapeshift into who we think the world will accept. And we call it personality. But Nietzsche knew the truth. He knew that identity, as most people present it, is a mask, not a lie, but a survival mechanism. And the deeper someone is, the more layered their mask becomes. Because the more profound your spirit, the more dangerous your authenticity can feel, to others and to yourself. But here's the catch: masks leak. No matter how carefully they're constructed, they slip. They leak in body language, the stiff shoulders, the fidgeting hands. They leak in tone, the overly practiced voice, the hollow laugh. They leak in discomfort, when the subject gets too close, when the silence gets too loud. Real identity does not live in what someone says, it lives in their contradictions. The person who claims they're fine while clenching their jaw. The one who preaches positivity but can't sit still in silence. The person who tells you they don't care what people think, while obsessively checking how they're being perceived. That's not deception, That's the mask cracking. And if you're sharp enough to see it, you'll realize the real person always lives beneath the performance. Not polished, not clean, but raw, scared, unfiltered. When you stop believing in masks, you don't just start reading people. You start recognizing how many masks you've worn too. And that's where clarity begins. Not when you decode others, but when you finally stop pretending you were never one of them. Reading people is not magic. It's not a sixth sense. It's not some gifted intuition that only a few rare minds possess. Smart people don't read others because they're special. They read people because they pay attention to what most others ignore. They have trained themselves to see the repetitions that others dismiss. Because the truth is, people are shockingly predictable. Not because they lack depth, but because they're shaped by unfinished stories they keep acting out. You will hear someone say, "I just have a feeling about them." But smart readers don't rely on feelings. They rely on data, small, consistent signals that repeat across conversations, moods, and moments. It starts with tone shifts, the slight hesitation before someone agrees with something they don't believe, the voice that rises when someone's trying to sound confident but isn't. Then come the contradictions, the person who says they're so chill but can't stop correcting others, the man who says he doesn't care about status but keeps name-dropping, the woman who talks about independence while begging to be chosen. These aren't accidents. They are symptoms of a deeper pattern. And then there's timing, that strange delay when someone's asked a personal question, that moment when they repeat themselves just to fill space, that sudden shift of topic when the subject hits too close. These are not flaws, they're fault lines. The cracks where the performance thins and the truth begins to seep through. The smartest people don't look for what's loud, they look for what's off. They don't obsess over details. They watch for emotional fingerprints, the things people don't know they're doing. Because real clarity isn't magic. It's not even intuition. It's discipline. It's pattern recognition. It's learning how to stay quiet long enough to see what people are trying not to show. And once you've trained that muscle, the world stops feeling random. You stop getting blindsided, and the mask everyone's wearing, it starts to look like glass. These are not insights. They are weapons. Not the kind you use on others, the kind that disarm your illusions. Nietzsche did not study people to judge them. He studied them to see through them. And what he saw was not pretty. 1. Everyone wears a mask, not to lie, but to survive. What you see is not the person. It's the version of them that survived rejection. The louder the confidence, the more fragile the self. 2. People hate in others what they refuse to face in themselves. Mocking the arrogant. Check your self-worth. Shaming the fake. Look at your own performance. Criticism is a mirror, tilted at someone else to avoid your own reflection. 3. Silence is louder than speech. The truth leaks in pauses, the delay, the sigh, the forced smile. People avoid what reveals them, and that avoidance is a confession. 4. Self-deception comes before lying to others. People don't just fake things to manipulate you. They rehearse their own denial. I'm fine. I've moved on. I don't care. They believed it first because they had to. 5. Criticism is not analysis. It's autobiography. When someone constantly points out what's wrong in the world, they're telling you what's broken inside them. Every complaint has an origin story. 6. Confidence is often a costume for guilt. The people who seem most composed, they're often performing certainty to bury something they can't forgive in themselves. 7. Exaggeration reveals the insecurity underneath. I never care. I'm always happy. I don't need anyone. The more extreme the claim, the louder the fear it's hiding. 8. The hunger for control comes from inner chaos. People who micromanage everything aren't strong. They're scared. Controlling others is easier than confronting yourself. 9. Loud morality is often disguised superiority. The louder someone proclaims their virtue, the more they're hiding something behind it. Real goodness is quiet. Performance is insecurity in disguise. 10. People don't fear being hurt. They fear being seen. Being vulnerable isn't dangerous because of pain. It's dangerous because it threatens the identity we've built. Exposure is ego death. 11. What someone defends most, they doubt most deeply. If someone over-explains their beliefs, watch closely. They're not convincing you, they're trying to convince themselves. 12. The need to be remembered hides the fear of being forgotten. People who chase attention, the loudest in the room, the most visible online, aren't vain. They're terrified they don't matter. 13. Envy wears the mask of hate. People don't attack what they despise. They attack what they secretly desire. But don't believe they hate you. They believe they can't be you. 14. No one speaks from logic. They speak from pain. A person's beliefs aren't built on facts. They're built on scars. Every opinion has a wound beneath it. 15. Childhood doesn't disappear. It replays. The adult who dominates conversations was once ignored. The woman who hides emotions was punished for expressing them. Behavior is biography. 16. People hide uncertainty to avoid collapse. The more rigid someone's worldview, the more fragile their identity. Flexibility is strength. Dogma is fear with a megaphone. 17. Desperation dresses up as independence. I don't need anyone often means I've given up on being chosen. Watch for the people who isolate not because they're strong, but because they're tired of being disappointed. 18. Patterns are confessions. You don't need someone to tell you who they are. Watch their habits, the way they withdraw, the way they respond to silence, the people they chase or avoid. Their pattern isn't random, it's a scar replaying. Final reflection. Nietzsche did not hand us these truths to manipulate others. He gave them to us so we could stop confusing noise with honesty, performance with identity, and trauma with personality. And once you learn to see these patterns, you'll realize people are not mysterious. They are exposed if you know how to look. Every joke, every compliment, every insult, every silence. It all comes from somewhere. The mistake most people make is believing behavior is random, or worse, rational. But Nietzsche knew better. He knew people don't speak from logic. They speak from fear. They don't argue because they're confident. They argue because they're scared their belief is all they have. They don't brag because they're proud. They brag because they're terrified of being overlooked. They don't stay quiet because they're calm. They stay quiet because somewhere in childhood, silence became safety. The real question isn't what someone says, it's why they said it. A person who interrupts constantly, they were once unheard. A man who mocks emotion, he was taught vulnerability equals weakness. The friend who never asks questions about your life, they've been trained that attention is a resource and they were never given any. And here's the twist, they're not doing it consciously. They're surviving on autopilot. Because behind the sharpest intellect is usually a fear of being seen as dumb. Behind the need to be perfect is guilt that's never been named. Behind power, more often than not, shame. Shame for what they failed to do. Shame for what they became. Shame for the parts of themselves they buried just to function. But you'll never hear that spoken. You'll only see it in the way they correct others too quickly, the way they cling to structure, the way they shut down when intimacy enters the room. And if you're listening, if you're not just watching the performance but decoding the origin of it, you'll understand something most people never do. Behavior isn't a message, it's a cover, a shield built around a wound. And when you stop reacting to the surface and start asking, what pain is this protecting? You don't just become perceptive, you become free, because the world stops feeling personal. The anger, the coldness, the withdrawal, it was never about you, it was about them, and it always was. We live in an age of hyper-performance, online, at work, even in conversations with people we love. We're always on stage. Every Instagram caption, every "I'm doing great" text, every outfit, every opinion, every delayed reply, performance. But Nietzsche saw it before filters and followers ever existed. He wrote, "People don't live as they are. They live as the version of themselves they believe will be accepted." And that's the problem. We think people are hiding from us. But most of the time, they're hiding from themselves. You see it every day. The man who constantly talks about how strong he is because he's terrified of ever being seen as weak. The woman who posts endless quotes about healing because she hasn't allowed herself to feel anything real in years. The friend who never stops joking because silence makes him remember something he hasn't healed. People aren't fake, they're scared. Scared that if they drop the act, they'll be abandoned, rejected, irrelevant. So they curate their kindness to be admired. They weaponize their beliefs to feel powerful. They flaunt their independence to distract from the loneliness they won't admit. And the most dangerous part, they don't even know they're doing it. You ask someone how they're doing. They smile. I'm good. But their jaw clenches. Their shoulders stay tense. Their laugh is a second too forced. Their eyes flicker when yours don't. They're not lying to deceive you. They're lying to protect the version of themselves they've learned is safe. The strong one, the perfect one, the healer, the unbothered one, the spiritual one, the masculine one, the always in control one. Because in a world that rewards image over honesty, telling the truth, even to yourself, becomes dangerous. But truth leaks anyway, always. It slips through the cracks of control. The way someone deflects when a topic gets too close. The way they over-apologize for something minor. The way they laugh too loudly, as if volume can hide the fracture underneath. These aren't just quirks, they're confessions in disguise. They're the ego's way of saying, I don't know how to be seen without being destroyed. And as pressure builds, from life, from loss, from time, the performance breaks down. That's when you get the moment, the real moment. The sigh they didn't mean to let out. The pause that lasts 1 second too long. The way they suddenly go quiet after seeming so sure of themselves. The eyes that well up before the sentence finishes. The breath they take before they answer, like they're holding something back. That's not weakness. That's the soul surfacing, even if only for a second, because the truest version of a person is never who they perform to be. It's who they become when they forget to perform. So if you're the kind of person who notices this, if you feel things shift in a room before anyone speaks, if you catch the moment when someone's mask starts to crack, you're not just observant. You're witnessing a sacred moment, the version of them they haven't even dared to meet, the version they've buried beneath identity, survival, and the need to be accepted. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. You begin to understand that reading people isn't about judgment, it's about compassion. Because when someone breaks character, they're finally showing you who they really are. There's a moment that happens, quietly, suddenly, without warning, but never without consequence. You're sitting in a conversation, listening to someone complain, posture, or boast. And for the first time, you don't react. You don't take it personally. You don't feel attacked. You don't feel the need to defend yourself. You just see them. The patterns, the tone, the pacing, the way they over-explain, the way their confidence feels hollow, the way their silence is too loud. And suddenly, it clicks. This isn't about you. It was never about you. The things that used to anger you, the coldness, the arrogance, the clinginess, they don't sting the same way anymore. Because now, you recognize them for what they are. Wounds wearing armor. It's not weakness, it's survival. Just dressed up as dominance, silence, or virtue. And when you finally see that, something irreversible happens. Empathy becomes inevitable. Not the sweet performative kind. Not the kind that says, I understand to win moral points. But the kind that's born from grief. The kind that comes from knowing how hard it is to be human. Because once you see what people are really running from, once you see the guilt behind the bragging, the fear behind the control, the sadness behind the silence, you stop engaging with the mask and start recognizing the pain that built it. That's what Nietzsche wanted. Not to give you a tool for power, not to help you manipulate people, but to help you stop being fooled. Because the real danger isn't that people lie, it's that they believe their own lies, and then they expect you to live inside them. They expect you to respond to the character, not the truth behind the role. And if you can't see through it, you fall for the theater. You chase validation from people who are deeply insecure. You fear the rejection of someone terrified of connection. You feel inferior to someone who's secretly crumbling inside. But when you finally see people clearly, everything changes. You don't flinch at rejection, because now you know rejection isn't truth. It's a wound reflex. You don't get baited by conflict, because drama isn't danger, it's dysregulation. You don't get seduced by confidence, because loud isn't strong, it's scared. You begin to read the situation instead of reacting to the emotion. And in that space, clarity kills confusion. You stop asking, why are they doing this to me? And start wondering, what part of them is hurting so much that this is how they survive? And in that clarity, anger dies because you're no longer fighting reality. You're no longer taking someone else's trauma as your truth. You're no longer making their dysfunction your responsibility. You don't become weaker. You become unshakable. Not because you're cold, but because you're finally awake. Awake to the architecture of human behavior. Awake to the patterns behind the personalities. Awake to the fact that most people aren't dangerous, they're just scared. And once you see that, you stop needing to fight. You start choosing to understand. Because when you finally see people clearly, manipulation dies, resentment fades, and power returns to you. You were never becoming a reader. You were remembering something ancient, something buried. The truth has always been visible. You just were not taught how to see it. Because no one teaches you that people leak their story in every gesture, in every contradiction, in every silence they try to fill. But now you know. And more importantly, now you see, what looked like ego was fear. What felt like rejection was self-protection. What you once took personally was never about you. You're not just reading people now. You are remembering that the patterns were always there. You just needed someone to point to them. And here's the paradox. The more clearly you see others, the less you feel the need to defend yourself. Because what used to confuse you no longer touches you. You don't need to react when you understand. You are not standing above people now. You are standing with them, finally seeing what they've been too scared to face. This was never about judgment. It was about awakening to the pain behind the perfection, to the wounds behind the armor, to the humanity behind the behavior. And if you've ever felt like people didn't understand you, like they misread your silence, your strength, your softness, now you understand why. They were not trying to misunderstand you. They were wearing masks too. And people in masks can't recognize the faces of others. But here's what Nietzsche understood best. Power is not about being unreadable. It's about being seen, fully, deeply, and still being chosen. That's not weakness. That's the highest form of strength. So remember this. You were never truly hidden. They already know who you are. Now, finally, you do too.